Hey folks, welcome back to the Unqualified Film Bros podcast. Ben, Max, and George here. We are talking about our first Francis Ford Coppola movie, one of the greats of all time, self-funding this movie with 120 million out of his own pocket. We're talking about Megalopolis, which is certainly anyway, your opening thoughts, gentlemen?
Ben, you're gonna get spicy, so go
All
for it.
right. So this movie took about a million swings and missed all of them. Uh, it really it did go for a lot, but I feel like it was more confused than anything else. Like there are 20% of the scenes which are like, wow, this is great cinema, and 80% of them are like, did you make this on iMovie? Um,
I've seen clips made on iMovie. I've seen clips made on TikTok that are edited better than this.
I don't know what happened. This is the most confusing movie I think I've ever seen in my life. And I've seen a lot of weird shit, guys. I don't know what happened. $100 million. What the fuck happened? What? I know you're self-funding it, but like, I mean, what is going on? This honestly, looking at the themes of this movie, it really seems like a man who knows his time is up is trying to make one final swing, just throw all the marbles.
Sure.
Whether
I'm
he
just glad that
misses
you
or
were
not,
able
he
to
spent.
find a theme in this movie because I wasn't.
Oh, I
Oh,
thought you were
the
talking about Adam.
theme.
I thought you were talking about Adam Driver,
No,
not
for not for a second, Max. He was talking about Coppola the whole time.
There are a lot of themes in this movie that they try for. And I mean, some of them have like somewhat coherent like ideas, but the one that struck to me was time. Time is everywhere. And for a director that's 80 something, 83, I think,
He's 84.
hmm
84, it's very apparent that
I
this
don't
is
get
a
it.
screenplay written by a man who knows his time is running
He's
out and does
85.
not want that to restrict him. I mean, many times in this movie, Adam Driver's just like, I hate time. I don't like it. It's very bad.
Okay,
I want to
but
stop it.
he has the ability to stop time. He uses it twice in the first 5 minutes of the movie, and then he never uses it again until the last
Well,
minute.
I think it's very apparent. Like Ford
Do it!
Coppola,
It's cool. It's like the
well, the
coolest
whole
part of this
thing,
movie,
in
besides
my
Shia LaBeouf's
opinion,
ponytail.
oh, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but he uh he's running out of time, right? And yeah, obviously it's not utilized to its most efficient usage, but it really seems like a guy that's running out of time, like everyone will eventually do, but it's kind of like flailing in a cinematic fashion. It's like going for everything and nothing at once, like someone would do when they're dying. It's just a very confusing movie. Like, I get it. You're old, as many of us will eventually be, as many people are, but I don't. There's just a lot of things going on that don't really make sense.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't disagree with anything that you've said, but I kind of liked it. Like,
I did too.
like
Yeah.
If
I
I'm
thought it was
if I
kind of
gotta
awesome at
tally off that, it's
certain
like,
points. Like,
if you're gonna miss all that much,
yeah,
but at least you're taking the swings.
yeah,
So many people are afraid to take swings.
yeah,
A man who's got nothing left to lose, funding
yeah,
his own movie,
yeah,
and even if it doesn't work, it should be a lesson. Like, you can do more exciting things. A lot of movies we review are so boring. They get the same scores, but they're so much less creative, at least. I mean, this is a movie trying to achieve something, and even if it doesn't, I wish more movies would try. You're gonna
I
fail, even if like you try to do something generic sometimes. So you might as well try to do something extraordinary. because you might as well end up in the same place with a far greater, shoot for the stars, maybe hit the moon, maybe completely fail, but at least you shot higher than everything else that generally comes out.
I was talking about the film with a coworker earlier today, and I realized almost a double standard that I have created within myself, because I love that Coppola made this himself. It was a passion project for decades, and he finally made it happen. And it's awesome that he, you talk about whether you make the film for the audience or make it for yourself as a creator. And Coppola made this movie for himself. It's going to be one of the worst box office disappointments maybe ever, with how much was spent on it and how many people are going to see it.
To be completely honest, I don't think that mattered to him. This is a man,
no, that's exactly it.
At the end of his life.
He didn't make it for it to be a blockbuster. He didn't make it for it to break even. He didn't make it for an audience. He made it for himself because it was a story that he cared about, and he wanted to tell the story. And the double standard that I've realized in myself in this is that for the last few years, I have shit on the greatest director of all time, Steven Spielberg, for doing the exact same thing. Because with West Side Story and The Fabelmans, he is just making movies for himself. It's just to say, I'm great. I'm getting towards the end of my career. I'm going to tell the stories that I want to tell. Granted, one of them was a remake and one of them was his own life story. But where I find myself accepting the double standard within myself, and I get that it's a double standard, and some people will get mad at me for this, but with those two movies, Spielberg doesn't take the swings that Coppola does with this one.
But they're different. They're completely
different. This is so much more.
I would say that both of them are what I want to see. You see so many people, and just in Hollywood in general, you have this idea like, oh, I'm going to take this project from Disney or Marvel or whatever. It's very easy to do that. And it's very hard to do something that may disappoint. But we should give credit to those people who are willing to do that, because that's what made Hollywood. That's what made movies what they are, is people who are willing to do things. And one of the greatest movies of all time, according to many great directors, is Playtime. And I thought of this movie whenever I saw all the articles about this guy's self-funding everything. Playtime is a movie considered to be one of the greatest of all time. It's very weird, very strange. At the end of the day, after a lot of analysis, you really begin to understand it, and you begin to understand its genius. But the director, Jacques Tati, he did not live where that became a common understanding of the movie. It bankrupted him. He mortgaged his house. He mortgaged everything. And Vertigo is one of the movies that I showed on here. And it took about 20 years before that was actually accepted as a good movie. Most people thought it was just a bad misfire of what was commonplace for the time. And in this movie, I think there are scenes which are absolutely bonkers, and I don't really know how they made it. But there are also scenes where I'm like, if I contemplate on this for a few years, this might be something. And it's what I would want to see from somebody who is at the end of their life. It's like, you have nothing to lose other than money, and all that you cannot take with you when you go.
I think I know what scenes you're talking about. It's everything with Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, and Natalie Emmanuel. Because everything with Jon Voight, Shia LaBeouf, and Aubrey Plaza is an entirely different movie.
Even Jon Voight surprised me in some scenes where, he basically talked about how, he is kind of the emissary of Francis Ford Coppola in this movie. He is really rich, he has all the money, and he's old.
And he doesn't really know what to do with it.
Sure, he wants to have sex with Aubrey Plaza. Who doesn't? Whatever. But he wants to leave something behind, which is the end of the movie. And I will not say this is the greatest movie I've ever seen by any stretch. But I feel like I need to watch it a few more times to actually give it a fair review, because it has a much more, we've reviewed plenty of bad movies. and they're bad because they just don't work. But this movie has a lot going on. It's hard to judge it on one watch through. Like many people judged Vertigo or plenty of my favorite movies, Blade Runner, similarly. It took a few watches and it took a few years, sometimes even decades, to actually acknowledge the merit of those movies. And this has much more than plenty of the bad movies that we've watched, right? So I feel the need to say, I don't get it right now, but that doesn't mean that there's nothing there. There clearly is a lot of thought into it. There is a lot of Shakespearean stuff. Most of it is around, taking over from a king or a leader or something. You've got Catalina Caesar, Caesar Catalina, which is the correct Roman order for those things. And then you also have, obviously, Crassus, who took over, or at least had a lot of money. There's a lot of Roman references going on there, but
There's a lot of Roman references, and then you get a character named Wow Platinum.
And then there's Wow Platinum.
But I think that's something that Francis Ford Coppola does really, really well here, is blending obvious Roman Empire themes with this quasi-futuristic New York City, because those are the two worlds that he's trying to bring together in this film.
It's an interesting idea. You even have mob people there.
It's
Hamlet. That was the other one that I was thinking of.
Yeah.
Killing his father.
It's kind of clunky in its connection of those two spheres for a lot of the movie, but there are several moments, and again, a lot of it comes from the performances of Adam Driver, Giancarlo Esposito, and Natalie Emmanuel.
There are really a lot of great performances, even if I don't really get it right now. I feel like even if I get 80% of it, that would probably have to come after a lot of watches. Even if it's a bad movie, there is a lot to dive into.
There's so much
and
here.
I have to figure out whether it makes sense or not. But on one watch, I cannot. There's a lot there.
I mean, maybe this is a project we come back to in a year when we've all seen this 2 or 3 times.
But that is one thing that I really wanted to bring up this episode, which is plenty of things take time to actually appreciate. And I do wonder whether this will be one of them. It's not one of those things where it's like, oh, it's 50% of Rotten Tomatoes. It's a bad movie like The Instigators. I mean, it's a trash movie. There's nothing there to dive into. Aside from a few good improv performances. This has the same ratings, and yet it has something there that you can dive into. And I do wonder, Vertigo is one of my favorites, as I said before. It got, I believe, around the same ratings when it came out. And now, most directors would hold it as the greatest movie of all time. So, I would say it's fair to review this movie and fair to judge it, but I wouldn't be surprised on a reappraisal of this movie.
And I think, Ben, I agree.
And
100%.
Vertigo also was one of the most personal movies for Hitchcock. This, I believe, is probably one of the most personal for Francis Ford Coppola. There's a lot
probably his
on
most
time,
personal.
a lot on old age, on legacy. So I'd be curious. I'm curious to see it again. I'm curious to see it a few more times. And that is not something I would say about a lot of movies. I would say it's an okay movie on first watch. Because I didn't really get it. But there may be something there. And that's, I guess, just what I want to point out. It's good to swing and miss. It's really good. If you shoot for 6 out of 10 and you hit that, wow. Great job.
And again,
boring movie.
Coppola didn't make this for us. He made this for himself.
He sacrificed $110 million, probably without care whether he got it. back. Yeah, 120, whatever. It's a lot of money that he didn't care whether he got it back, and that is actually symbolized in Caesar, right? In this movie, which is he is establishing something for the future. And that is the one thing that I did get on the first watch is Caesar is establishing something for the future. He does not care what it cost him and money and physical ailment and pride, whatever.
Because he gets shot in the eye.
Yes.
Which is
but
the
idea
biggest
is
what the fuck moment of the entire movie.
Film. The eye is the mind's eye, the soul.
Wow, that was so poetic and also utter bullshit that it could have been a line in Megalopolis.
What? That's like a philosophical thing for like thousands of years.
I know, but in this context, it because it's literally his eye.
So is Blade Runner. Blade Runner, the eye is one of the most important symbols in the movie. The eye is very important to all of us. We're watching movies after all. I don't think it's too much of a stretch to symbolize the importance
He's also
of
an
the
architect.
eye.
He's losing one of his tools to like build for the future, build what he's trying to go for.
And he's not upset about that. He wants to build. He wants to move to the future, even if it costs him whatever.
The
interesting idea. There's a lot of Roman like references. I don't know what's going on there. I really do not. But there is things there that I like.
Like 45 minutes or so before he gets shot in the eye, when he and Julia really start connecting, Caesar and Julia, when they really start connecting, and they go through the montage of coming up with ideas like for the structures of Megalopolis. And all these people are climbing all over each other, and they're figuring out, they're really working physically into space. That was my favorite part of the movie. And I think, with a movie that again swings and misses a lot with some of its philosophy, with some of its dialogue, with some of its visuals, I think where it really hits, and we touched on this earlier, is in its performances and letting the actors be physical. Especially Adam Driver and Natalie Emmanuel there, and Aubrey Plaza and Shia LaBeouf in a couple of their scenes. They really Coppola really let his actors play around in the space and be very physical in this film, and I think it works to its advantage.
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I mean, everyone is very committed to this film. No matter what's happening, everyone has decided I'm committing 100% to
even Lawrence Fishburne, who's barely in the movie.
Oh, he's just doing fucking Morbius, honestly.
I'm sorry, did you just say Morbius or Morpheus?
Sorry, Morpheus. God, Marvel brain.
Benjamin, I expect more from you. You need to watch Madam Web 3 times to repent.
No, I'm gonna lose more brain cells. Yeah, I will blame partially this podcast. Forces me to watch terrible movies. I've lost about 1 billion brain cells since I started.
It's a collaborative schedule. We all set it together.
Sometimes you force me to watch stuff like Madam Web, though.
Sometimes there's nothing else coming out in a given week.
Sometimes, it's just tragic. All of a sudden, a terrorist attack happens because nothing else is happening on Saturday. Oh, well.
These are not the same things, Benjamin.
For my eyes, they are. Anyway. This movie is...
Jason Schwartzman's also in this one for a hot second. Talia Shire's also in this for a hot second.
We don't need to talk about the cast. There are so many people in this movie.
I'm shooting off a couple of names that...
Yeah, Dustin Hoffman's in the fucking movie. It's like,
Dustin Hoffman is in the movie, and then he's killed off screen, and then shown how he's killed in a flashback.
Look at me, I died out of rubble. Oh no. Yeah.
So before
there are good ideas here, and there are terrible ideas here. I don't know how to judge this movie. It's very rare you get one of these.
Before we hopped on, we were talking about the creator. and how visually stunning it was as a
That
sci-fi film right around this time last year. I'm not asking you to
honest,
compare the two.
it's
I'm using it as
impossible.
a segue to talk about what did you guys think of the film visually?
There are some scenes that they feel like they've been filmed by a master. They look absolutely stunning. They look incredible. And there are some scenes that look like they have been made again in my iMovie. It's how are they in the same movie? I don't know, but
No, I agree. There are some scenes where
I don't get it.
the green
You can
screen
even
is
there are
so
some scenes
blatantly
where it's literally
obvious.
edited from one of the worst things I've ever seen to one of the best. I don't know how
When
to judge this movie. It's very
when
hard.
when Caesar and Julia are on the beams hanging over, I guess it's the comp to the Chrysler building. Uh, that is
Avengers
so
Tower.
it's gorgeous. Everything about that scene looks great. And then I feel like right away when we move in on a close up of either of them, it's the most obvious green screen background you've ever seen.
I kind of felt that way for most of the scene, not just when they got close.
No, the wide shots are just
There are
gorgeous.
there well, yeah, but there's some scenes where it's
But
like the almost superficial quality of it feels right, and there are some scenes where there's actually people there and it feels wrong. I think that's the main thing. It's like when there's no one there, you can have this almost superficial dreamlike vision of a city, but when you are dealing with actual people somewhere in that scene, it feels very hard to suspend your disbelief and be like, oh yeah, they're definitely on a crane there, definitely on a piece of metal there. It just doesn't
Like when they're
seem
stepping
quite
into
real.
the magic carpet things or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know whether to treat this as I don't know. I don't know. That's probably 50% of my review of this movie. It's there's a lot there, but I don't maybe 50% of it does not make sense. I don't know yet.
and I
I
think that's
really
why it's
don't.
not getting the best reviews is that people don't understand it yet.
It could be.
I mean,
Again, I don't
that's
know
what you were
whether it will
saying
make
about
sense late.
films like Vertigo and Blade Runner,
Yeah,
where
my
it took
caveat
people a
is
while to
I
understand.
don't know whether this will actually be that or it just does not make sense. All right.
You're you're
I have
you're covering your
I have
bases
not
in case
been
you're not calling your shot here.
well, I watched the movie once. How am I supposed to like know this?
Go see it
I
again.
don't know the future, unlike Caesar apparently.
Double feature with next week's movie. I think that'll be a great double feature for you.
Oh my god. I'm gonna be lost. I'm gonna be in like a temporal prison.
So I read a piece months before this was released about how Coppola basically ignored public perception of guys like Shia LaBeouf and John Voight to cast them in this movie. What do you guys think of that decision to cast them, and then what do you think of the two of them in in their roles here?
To be honest, they're both good actors for the most part, even if they're weird people. So I get it. When you're self-funding something, you don't have to deal with the studio's mandates. And probably for someone at the end of his life, like I said, he's 80 something. I mean, he's not gonna die like tomorrow, right? But he's at the later
Not
stage of
making
his
10
life.
more films.
So he
Right.
is willing to do whatever. If he wants to take good actors like that are controversial, go for it. They're good at what they do. I
Yeah.
can't deny that. I mean, if you wanted to pick up Kevin Spacey, I don't like him as a person, but he's a good actor.
And again, I think this comes back to
That is the
To
freedom
be
you
fair, I
get
think
when
what
you
Kevin
self-fund.
Spacey has been found accused of doing and everything is worse.
That's fair, but also Shia LaBeouf said some
Yeah,
very incriminating things. He's
yeah,
like, yeah, I hurt that person. Um,
yeah.
all these people, John Voight is probably the most innocent. He's just super far right dude. He has not been convicted of anything or accused of anything.
but I think with
Um,
Coppola having such a vision for this film for decades, knew exactly what he wanted out of these characters, and he
And I
went and
get
he
it.
got the actors who he thought would do the best job with them.
Honestly, Shia LaBeouf, he was very good at what he was required to do. He was actually one of my favorite parts of the movie. Um, he fit the very androgynous role that he was required to fill, and also the betrayal, the very narcissistic way that he acted.
Very
He fit everything that
Shakespearean
I.
cousin.
Yes, well, obviously, this is like very influenced by Shakespeare, if it wasn't alluded to enough by all the Shakespearean references. Um,
I mean, when Caesar walks out 10 minutes into the movie and starts quoting Hamlet
well, you're doing
directly,
Hamlet, but you're also very clearly doing Julius Caesar's play in a
he's the
way.
first person, Adam Driver is, and I'm not going to fact check this at all because the rules were that I wasn't going to fact check this. Adam Driver is the
That's true.
first person in the history of film to say the lines "to be or not to be, that is the question," and "go back to the club" in the same film.
It is true. Though to
No
be
one's
fair,
ever done that before. Friend of the
most
pod,
people
Adam
do
Driver.
not quote the entire Hamlet monologue. In this one, they actually did.
No,
Um,
usually the actor gets cut off after the first two
Mostly
phrases.
they just say to be or not to be, and they're like, oh, okay, they get it. But he actually said the entire thing here, which fair. There's a lot of like almost dramatic play going on here, especially in that scene where they're basically shooting each person in what seems like a real set. It's just them on a stage almost. I mean, they're suspended.
It looks very theatrical, like a stage.
So yeah, there are ideas here, as I keep saying. I gotta figure it out. It may not be anything, but at least it tried for something, which is something that I hate of most bad movies today. I don't care whether you're bad, as long as you try to make something good. If you fail, it's fine. But I don't want to see something that's aiming for mediocrity. It's embarrassing. It's sad.
I don't think we could have gone into this one expecting Coppola to aim for mediocrity.
No, he's going to aim for the stars, and whether he hits literally right in front of him, that's honestly that is what I wanted out of an artist. He spent $120 million to make something that he wanted. And we can criticize billionaires all you want for buying a fucking yacht. This man built a movie. And even if it sucks, that is so much better than so many people.
Which jury's still out on whether this movie sucks.
Yeah, in 20 years, it might be crowned one of the greatest, movies of all time. That is the way that movies work. And I'm sure that he understands that. After all, he did study plenty of movies, and he saw what happened to plenty of his movies. So even if he dies and the movie goes on after that to become a phenomenon, like Vertigo did with Hitchcock, he knows there's potential.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's all I ask of artists. Aim for something, because mediocrity, it may sell something, but it doesn't exist for anything.
there's something here. Like I, I get the sense with this movie that, and like we've been talking about all night, it's being misunderstood right now just because people haven't been exposed to it enough. Like the three of us have seen it a combined 3 times.
It did not, most people did not buy a ticket to it. So
Right. And I think again, a lot of the people seeing this movie are probably people like us, film nerds and people who do movie podcasts and fans of Coppola's and so on and so forth. But I think the bottom line is that this movie has something to it beyond the Coppola name and beyond the performances of the big names in the cast, where it, at least to me, lends itself a little bit better toward being viewed more favorably sooner than later.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask me if Morbius is going to be better reviewed, 20 years from now,
I'm sorry,
I'm going to tell
Morbius or
you no.
Morpheus?
I said Morbius, all right? Morpheus is not a movie. It is an opera, though, I believe. So, checkmate.
No, it's Orpheus.
Oh, fuck.
It's actually
Actually,
Mobius, Owen Wilson's character in Loki.
Morpheus is another translation for Orpheus. I kid you not. Yeah, I think that this has potential for that. Many bad movies. Jurassic World Dominion made $1 billion. That movie is trash. This movie I would rather see 1,000,000 times over that movie. So they probably got around the same Rotten Tomato scores, but that's my opinion.
Buckle up, y'all. This is the second episode of season 4 of the pod, and Ben is going to talk about Jurassic World Dominion. I'm pretty sure on every single
You
episode.
didn't see it. You've never seen it. You don't know the
I have
suffering.
seen our
I don't want to
episode.
hear it.
I've
Watch
watched our
the
episode
fucking
about it.
movie.
I watched our episode about it, and I've heard you yap about it enough times to know that it's certainly something that we've talked about on the pod, much like Megalopolis, which
Yeah, but it's kind of like, going to the Holocaust Museum and experiencing the Holocaust. Do you understand? That may be a bit extreme, but there is a difference between acknowledging the after effects and experiencing it in real time.
I got you.
let's walk that back
Makes
on the
sense.
air right now, Ben. How about that?
Yeah, look, George, you didn't see Jurassic World Dominion.
Look, I said
No,
it was
no,
a
no,
bit
do not
extreme,
help
but
him here.
It was a
Do
bad
not
movie.
help him here.
It was a terrible
No,
experience.
because what he's saying is true. You didn't see the movie. You don't know how bad it is. And
That's
it's
true.
terrible.
I'm not ready to compare a movie I haven't seen to the Holocaust.
I didn't say that I was. I was talking
That's
about the
because
movie.
I said it was too extreme, but it was like the
don't
idea,
no.
the idea is, guys, I'm Jewish, okay?
Happy New Year,
Please,
Ben.
I'm absolved. L'shana tova, okay? Anyway, the idea is
So
I would rather watch this movie over a just
I would
regular
put
bad movie.
Megalopolis in the top half of movies that we've done on the pod.
It's fair. It's actually fair. I might do the same.
I don't know if I would put it.
Movies.
Again, I give it 3 out of 5 on Letterboxd right now. I'm not sure if that'll go up or down. It's
fair, really.
Again, it's a movie that I think we can all agree the jury's going to be out for.
I'm not giving it 5 stars, guys. Just at least now. Maybe
I'm
20
kind
years.
of expecting it to be at least in your honorable mentions at the end of the year, Ben.
There were a lot of movies that came out, George. Just because I'm somewhat defending it doesn't mean it's going to be my top 5. Now, again, maybe 20 years from now, it will be my top 5. But I got to see. Again, I have to see the movie more. And a lot of movies,
this is one that I'll come back to.
That's not a requirement. I could be like, oh yeah, very simple. This movie sucks.
You've done that one of those... a lot.
Exactly.
You did it a month ago with the Instigators.
That's an endorsement. Honestly, that is an endorsement.
Yeah, Megalopolis is one that we've been hearing about our entire lives because Coppola has been trying to get it made for our entire lives. The guy worked in footage that the second unit on this film got on September 11th, 2001 into that last little bit of the film. That's how long that's not even as long as Coppola has been working on this movie. Like he didn't get that footage. He didn't source it from anywhere else. That was original.
Great artists start young.
Coppola footage.
Tolkien started to write his languages when he was 23. So
artists, and I said this after reading um, a review on Letterboxd about why Coppola made this, and I think the bottom line is, and I'm going to butcher the Latin pronunciation on this, but it's MGM's slogan, uh, "Artis gratia artis," art for art's sake. That's why Coppola did this. He did it to make art.
As most people should.
Should. All right, we've
Because
said all we
again,
can about Francis Ford Coppola.
legacy. Legacy.
Go watch the first two Godfather movies. Go watch Apocalypse Now. Go watch Megalopolis.
Okay. Yeah, most people you should have watched those movies by now. But
Should
go
have.
watch Megalopolis. It's something that he
See it a few
self-funded.
times and form your own opinion on it.
See it a few times. Help save Francis Ford Coppola's bank account. Please. He's going bankrupt, I swear to God.
Ben is very excited to see this again in a theater a few more times.
I'm going to give him at least $45. And that should be enough to save his bank account.
45 of 120 million. Carry the 4. Yeah, that'll work.
If you do math like Caesar does, then it actually makes sense. You just stop counting at a certain point, and the debt stops.
All right, Joker Folie à Deux next week. We're heading into
Why
the
did we
twisted
have to-
mind of.
We're doing this back to back. How in the world?
We're diving. I was going to say we're diving into the twisted mind of Arthur Fleck, but we're diving into the twisted mind of Benjamin the Third Green.
Yeah, I think that movie will have stronger opinions than this one. Same Rotten Tomatoes scores around the same place, and IMDb and all that stuff. But my initial opinion, I'm going to review that one harshly.
I have a feeling I will too. Anyway, we'll see you for Joker Folie à Deux next week. In the meantime, go check out Megalopolis a few times and help save Francis Ford Coppola's bank account.
By the way, it means folly of two in French, if you guys didn't know.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.